There's a story going around right now. If you're miserable in corporate, the answer is to quit and become an entrepreneur. My guest today spends her entire career helping people make that leap. And she's about to tell you why that assumption gets more people hurt than it helps. Powerhouses, welcome back to Shedding the Corporate Bitch. I'm Bernadette Boas, and today we're talking about how to think like an entrepreneur without quitting your job. But really, we're talking about a mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset, not the version when you quit your job tomorrow, the version you can start using in your role today. My guest is Laura Berman Fortgang. She's a pioneer in the personal coaching field, a 5-time best-selling author, a TEDx speaker with nearly 2 million views, and the creator of the Now What methodology. She's coached executives inside the biggest companies in the world, and she's coached people who walked away from corporate to build something of their own. So she has seen both sides of this up close. In this conversation, we get into what the entrepreneurial mindset actually looks like inside a corporate role, being a visionary, strategic thinking, being a self-starter without waiting for permission. We get into why the busiest, most reliable person on the team is sometimes the person who gets passed over for a promotion. Laura calls it staying the understudy instead of becoming a star. We talk about how asking the right question can do more for your team than handing them the answer. And we get into why leaving corporate to become an entrepreneur is a completely different skill set, one that isn't guaranteed just because you did a great job in the role that you have in corporate. If you've ever wondered how to bring more of the founder energy into the role you already have, this episode is for you. Let's get into it with Laura Berman Fortgang. Laura, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Bernadette.
You are very welcome. And being that both of us are entrepreneurs, we know the kind of mindset that really either helps us or hurts us. And that mindset would be very valuable in the corporate space as well. Should corporate professionals really see the value of having a entrepreneurial mindset or intrapreneur? Yes. So before we get there, though, you've spent decades helping people make transitions in their career. What drew you to coaching? Like, what fascinated you about coaching to where that's the direction you decided to take?
Well, funny enough, I came to coaching as a client. I had an old mentor who had become a coach, and I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. I had started my first career out of school to be an actress pursuing musical theater in New York City, got disillusioned with waiting on tables, and was like, how am I going to figure this out? I lost a decade of resume time. How am I going to do this? And I hired a coach. And 2 years later, I realized I wanted to do what he did. But it really wasn't until 9/11. Like, I had, in the interim between the late 90s and 9/11, I was helping executives get promotions. I was helping people in their leadership style. And then really 9/11 was a watershed moment where so many people were saying, oh my gosh, anything can happen in life. Life is too short. I've got to get the back burner dream and put it on the front burner. And so I started helping people figure out what was the next step in their life. And that led to a book called Now What, 90 Days to a New Life Direction. So that's the trajectory of how I ended up doing career exploration and strategy with people for years. So I work with both executives and then people who step out and go on their own.
So what was it about your relationship with your coach that fascinated you about the coaching process?
I started out to do a communication skills business since I was a really easy leap as an actor. But I realized that the kind of questions he asked me, the kind of deeper introspection that was asked of me was what I was doing with the people that I was doing presentation skills with. And yet that doesn't really lend itself to getting into coaching people. It's just telling them how they're going to do their presentation. So it was that nuance that made me say, no, I want to go deeper with people. I want to do more and be deeper into more parts of their life. And that's how it started. So I did start out as a life coach, but quickly made my way into the corporate arena and worked with executives.
One concept I resonated with you when I was doing research and preparing for today is your philosophy is that you don't fix, you ask questions that help the client, help the individual, help the executive get to where they need to go, or to solve the problem or make that decision. What do you find about asking questions to be so profound, whether you're a coach or not, even if
Right.
you're a corporate leader and you're working with your team members? What is it about asking questions that they really need to learn to lock in on?
What asking questions does is it gives ownership to the person you're asking the questions of, right? Most people are like, oh, you're an open door and I can come in and get answers. But when you keep giving people the answers, they need to keep coming back for the answers. So it's a bit of the philosophy of give the man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, is that when you start asking questions, you actually make people's brains work differently. And I mean, one of the greatest compliments I ever got was someone who had worked with me, and 5 years later, she was like, oh, I was thinking of hiring you again, and then I didn't need to because I thought of what you would have asked me. And I'm okay with that. You graduated. I taught you something that stuck. That's great. So the questions really make you a better thinker, a better problem solver. They bring ownership so that you're, again, not giving the answer, but growing the answer out of people. And also just the inquiry itself helps people think more clearly. What did you try? What didn't you try? What are you afraid of? What's next? It just makes you peel away the layers of the onion and you get to the real source of the problem.
All that critical thinking, that strategic thinking, all the real skills of leadership that one must have, right?
Yeah, it brings it all into play, all of it.
Now, one element of that too, to really help people elevate their leadership capability, is really having a mindset of an entrepreneur, even though you're within the corporate arena. So help us understand your philosophy on an entrepreneurial mindset and how it benefits those that are working to climb the ladder and be successful at being a people leader.
Sure. I mean, an entrepreneurial mindset, let's think of what's the criteria of that? What are the pieces? You're a visionary, you see things, you see a possibility. You're also strategic. So that's a leadership skill, right? Of like, how are we going to get to that thing that I see? You're a self-starter. You're not waiting for permission. You're not waiting for everyone to be on board, although corporately there's more of that required, but it's still good to have the mindset. And also the entrepreneur is always marketing. So even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're inside of a company, you have to sell your ideas. You have to sell the way to do it. You're always marketing yourself in a way too, and your visibility and your exposure. So you really do need to be entrepreneurial, I think, to stay relevant and succeed in the corporate workforce today.
And yet a lot of managers / leaders, not all managers are leaders, kind of struggle with that. They struggle with it because, one, they feel they're going to be overstepping. They're going to step on people's feet. They're going to rock the boat. How do you advise them to really shift into an entrepreneurial mindset to where it's not going to hurt anyone or jeopardize even them, but actually benefit everyone within the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say respect seniority, but act equally. You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid to do things just because you may not be the most senior most person. You do need people to sign off on it sometimes. I'm not saying you can be fully independent, but it's just a matter of communication and expectation, right? So communicating expectations, finding out what the expectations are of you, communicating your intention of what you're going to do. Does that fit everybody's idea of what's possible? So it just means more communication and being a bit of a trailblazer, and that's okay.
For a individual who has a manager who's secure in their own capability and leadership versus if they're working for an insecure, weak type of manager, then how do they handle that?
Yeah, it's totally different. When you have a secure manager who's happy for your success and who wants to see you fly, that's a great scenario. When you have someone who then you are stepping on their toes, they perceive that, or they get defensive or they get scared. That's where the communication piece comes in. It's like, I'm not here to take your job. You really can literally can say that, but I see a path towards X, Y, or Z. So you might be asking for permission more often, but instead of permission, let's turn that into support, right? You're not asking for permission, you're asking for support to make certain things happen. So the more you communicate, I think the easier it'll be on the insecure person to see you be doing your thing.
Is there a certain method of communicating with them that they should be doing?
It's also not too soon for you to be asking questions, right? So if that person who has a supervisor or a boss who's more insecure, you can ask questions of them. What do you expect from me? Or what problems do you foresee if I do X, Y, or Z, right? So instead of making yourself one down and apologizing, you're more asking very succinct and concrete and direct questions. I think that's one technique. And then seeing them on things, letting them know what you're doing, so nothing appears like you're going over their head or around their back. And it's a shame that you have to waste your energy babysitting somebody else's insecurities, but it'll make your life easier all the way along the way.
Well, it's the reality because individuals, because I remember myself, I would look up my early years, I would look up at those individuals in the big office with the big titles, and I would think, oh, they got it all together. They are that entrepreneur or entrepreneurial mindset. They have their crap together. And then you look into it a little bit deeper and you start peeling back the cloak and you realize, no, they're just as insecure and feel intimidated as the next person.
Yep. I mean, I used to have a coach who said even the CEO, excuse my French, pisses in the same pot. You know what I mean? Like everyone's just human, and you got to remember that and not be intimidated.
Yeah. Well, I have to admit, and this is kind of going off in a little bit of a left field, but only because it was written in your bio about maybe your appearance on Oprah or your work with Oprah. And I always go back to her when I think about this point of even people at the biggest level of their business and life, whether it's financial or career wise or relationship wise, and they have as much, and we call them bitches here, with fears, insecurities, negativity, self-doubt, imposter syndrome as the next person.
Yeah, I mean, the higher you go, the more you have to lose. You know what I mean? So, and there's not as many people to mentor with or as many people to meet minds with. It's lonely at the top is a phrase for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. You don't, where do you go to tell people that you're feeling insecure when you're supposed to be at the top echelon? In fact, that I screwed up my little quote to myself before, but when I was on Oprah, that's when I taught myself, assume equality and respect seniority. That's what I meant to say before. Assume equality, respect seniority. It's her show, but don't play one down. Assume equality. We were there to do a job. In those days, she had 20 million viewers or something, and we had a job to do for 20 million viewers. And that's how I was able to keep my nerves in control and have that moment with the big O.
Right. And the big O being Oprah, everybody.
Yes, Oprah, everybody, Oprah.
Do you have an example that you can share potentially of a client that has made that mindset shift to where they were struggling with not speaking up, with not taking risks, with not really being entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, and yet you help them toward that mindset, and what changes that might have created for them?
Yeah, what comes to mind is a female senior executive, but not C-suite yet, in a hospital setting, who there were so many things that needed to get done and so many people that needed to be consulted. And she just kept on spinning her wheels, waiting for things to happen. And there was a big shift that needed to happen with their emergency room department. And she just took the reins, kept people in communication, but took the reins. And it ended up getting her a C-suite position, I believe at a different hospital, but that venture alone had created like a multi-million-dollar plus on the balance sheet. And that was her entree into the C-suite. And it was all by giving up the checking and being nervous and worrying about what she was doing.
And aren't they just the most rewarding experiences? I mean, I'm being a little bit selfish here from a coach perspective, but you love seeing that type of success in someone that you are working with, in anyone actually, but in someone that you're working with, to see that they are willing and open to face their blind spots, face their demons or their bitches, as I call them, and then work to shed them and really leverage them to improve their career.
Yeah, whoever said that keep business and personal separate, it's not possible. Like, you bring yourself to work and you've got your insecurities or your habits or whatever they are. And so I find the workplace is just a growth lab. It's a place to bounce off of other people and to bounce off of scenarios, and it's a lab or a playground where you're able to grow based on the circumstances and the scenarios that are presented to you.
I love that. I'm going to quote you for that. It's a growth lab. That's fantastic. Do you find with just the chaos of the world nowadays and the pace of which everyone is running just to get through the day, that many of them aren't taking that time for growth? They're not taking that time to consider, where are my blind spots? Where are my gaps? Where am I not fulfilling what my people need? And if they were, they would see that growth that they could be creating. So what do you do, or do you have frameworks or practices that you share with them in order to get to that place?
Well, first of all, we want them to say, what if I had a coach? Would that make something different happen for me? So there's the reflection time built into your coaching. And then you're going to have your homework and your things that you need to do. Also, it doesn't have to be meditation. In some circles, I call it executive think time. But like, how can you schedule in time to just have space in your mind? Because we're always answering email. We're always looking at the phone. We're constantly barraged, and you're not doing your best thinking when you're just responding to stimuli. So can you make even a 15-minute window once a day to write notes, look at your to-do list, whatever the case may be, to clear your mind and to do your best thinking? Also, I work with a lot of executives, and especially women, on their to-do list, because women tend to write a to-do list for the day that's really a to-do list for a year, and then wonder why they don't get to it, right? So really having, like, what are the things that can happen today? What is the master list of things that I'd like to get done in the next 6 months? But what can I really get done today? And make it doable, right? We put ourselves in these scenarios to have the unfinished to-do list all the time. And it really does take a toll on your energy and on your adrenals and on your attitude.
And on your mental sanity.
Exactly.
Thinking that you're going to get through everything because you put it on a piece of paper and you never see it dwindle. That is exasperating. For me, it's
demoralizing.
Demoralizing. What do you find, especially because the work you do in career transitioning, what do you find to be the biggest struggle for professionals when it comes to being satisfied, fulfilled, and happy in the role that they're in?
People ignore the signs for too long. Like, they ignore the little signs, right? The frustrations, the attitude from particular people, the schedule, it could be the commute. Like, you ignore those things until the whole thing just blows up and you're miserable, right? So if you can take care of any of the small items, you might renegotiate your job description. You might change departments. It doesn't always mean you have to do a cataclysmic, huge change or pivot. But if we pay attention to the small stuff, we're less likely to have a huge crisis. And it's okay if you've had a huge crisis and you want to just get rid of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you really have to ask yourself, honestly, what is it that I don't like? Like, one of the first things I do with clients is have them write a list of, it could be 25, it could be 50, it could be 10. But what are the things you're putting up with? And it could be, like I said, your commute, someone's attitude, the amount of emails you have to answer. It could be those things that appear small and appear that they can't be moved. But the little things are what robbing you of your energy that you need for the big things. And a lot of women, especially, like, we don't delegate. We don't delegate at work and we don't delegate at home. And I'm always advising women who make great money, but just don't want to give up the reins, is like, buy back your time. Like, where in your personal life can you get stuff done that you buy back your time, whether that be laundry or cooking or meal planning or a lot of people want to pick up their own kids and see their kid at the end of the day. But like, I had a girlfriend who had a business. She's like, oh, I'm so unproductive once my kids come home. And I was like, well, why don't you have somebody come into your house from 3 to 6 so the kids get their snack and they get their homework done and whatever, and you work the full day till 6 o'clock? And she's like, oh, brilliant. Like, she just couldn't see it herself.
Right.
So really buying back your time wherever you can, and it's okay to not be doing it all and you don't get a medal.
Why I have to touch on this. Our viewers and listeners are both men and women, but you mentioned women when it comes to delegation. Why do you feel that women have a harder time delegating? I don't want to assume.
No one can do it as well as they can. They think that way, or we think there's some brownie points waiting for us. If we're superwoman, then we're truly capable. So it could be different things for different people, whatever their psychological makeup is, but living with a little imperfection is okay.
Perfect imperfection.
Yes, perfect imperfection. Isn't that nice?
Perfection. And what impact have you seen that having their inability to delegate in their career?
It makes you the go-to person. It makes you the person who everyone dumps stuff on because you're going to do it. And I had a career in the theater before I came to coach in the corporate world. And I learned that it is easier to find a new star than it is to replace the understudy. And because the understudy does a specific job that most people don't want to do, but if they do it and they're so good at it, we often don't make them the star. It's like they stay the understudy. And I think that when you do everything and you don't delegate and you don't empower people and you don't have the time for the bigger strategic vision of things, you stay the understudy. You don't move up.
I love that analogy.
Nice.
And people need to really kind of focus on that. Because you, like you said, if you're thinking that you're getting a gold star or that it's benefiting you, it actually isn't. Because it's also not the way corporate works. Corporate doesn't necessarily reward the smartest, the hardest worker.
That is correct. And when you're invaluable in that way, they want to keep you where you are. We don't want to lose you.
Yes. Okay. You need to say that again.
You become invaluable, which is a good thing, but they don't want to lose you to a different department or to a promotion or whatever. We need you, right? This reminds me of a story. Like I worked with a woman who was in research and development in one of the fast food chains. So in corporate, and I asked her, what did she want to be known for? And she wanted to be known for innovative ideas, right? She's in research and development. How much time do you spend on innovative ideas every week? She was the head of the company picnic committee and the fire safety committee and all those jobs that nobody wanted. She was doing the understudy. And I was like, no, you got to give those all back. She had been passed over for the same promotion a couple of times, and we got rid of all that stuff, changed her patterns, and she did within 6 months, she did get that promotion. But but we had to move out of the understudy role.
And again, that analogy, because I'm very visual, that analogy is fantastic. Can't use it because I'm not in the theater, but that analogy is fantastic. I'll have to line something up that goes along with it, but that's similar. So I'm going to kind of take us in a little bit of a direction. We've been talking about entrepreneurial mindsets. We've been talking about asking questions, being really an effective leader. One thing I'd like you to touch on, being in the position that you're in with helping people with career transitions, and I also noticed that you also help people become coaches, is there's a lot of corporate professionals leaving, and automatically, since we talked about the entrepreneurial mindset, automatically thinking that they are primed and ready and capable of being an entrepreneur. What do you say to that?
It's not a guarantee that you'll succeed. And that doesn't mean just the economic climate or whatever's going on, but it's a whole other skill set. If you think about it, you could be managing $100 million budget, but you've got a staff and you've got a team and you've got an executive assistant and you've got a budget. But when you go out on your own, you have to operate on a shoestring budget unless you're going to make a huge investment financially into your business. You're doing most of the work yourself. You've got to start being strategic about what pieces you're going to buy your time back with, right? To hire other professionals to do. And then there's this constant marketing that trips up a lot of people. I mean, I have several clients that are ex-executives now becoming coaches and doing a business. And they've said, if I weren't for you, I'd be flailing, because you're just like, oh my God, there's so many plates to keep in the air and you don't know what to do first. And that nobody trains you on that in the corporate setting. Absolutely not. Right. So that's where a lot of people fall down. And also they don't test their idea before they go to market, and they waste a lot of money on branding and colors and websites. And then you find out, oh, I missed the mark. So there's a lot that goes into being an entrepreneur that people in business don't think about.
And you just literally painted 2008 to 2010 for me. That's exactly what I went through, thinking, oh, I am fully capable of running a business. I have all this pedigree, all this formal corporate experience. And I'll tell you what, of everything that you said, just the mere fact of losing the infrastructure that corporate provides, I didn't even know how to set up my own printer. I was like, what? Where's my IT guy? Where's my IT guy to set up my laptop? For those individuals that want to make that transition, or like you said, your two friends are in that process, what are the first couple of things they should be considering or doing as they walk into that that crazy journey they're about to enter?
Well, first of all, get off the kitchen table. Like, don't work at the kitchen table. Even if it's a corner of your bedroom, like, have a place you set up as an office. Have your dedicated fax. I don't know if anyone uses faxes anymore, but if you're using your cell phone, that's your dedicated business line. You don't want to be picking up a phone and you think it's your kid and it's the CEO of a company, right? So, right. I mean, that may seem obvious, but you don't realize how many people don't set up. Get your URL, get your emails and all that. And then decide how much you're going to work per day. Because when you first start out, you don't have 8 hours of work a day to do. And people get very depressed thinking like, oh, I'm sitting here with nothing to do. And okay, so you don't work 8 hours, you work 3 and then go on with your life. And it psychologically really helps until you start growing big enough that you have 8 hours of work a day to do. So that's some of the little startup stuff. But the 4 main pillars that I work with coaches on to stay in the game and make their corporate salary back, and then hopefully more, is first of all, your messaging. Can you articulate what you do? That is the hardest thing for people. You will not believe that, but it is. 2 is methodology. If you have a way to do it that no one else does it that way, it makes you a category of 1. You don't feel like you have a million people competing with you. 3 is marketing, and that's a constant machine that you start building. How much social media do you need to do? How much email marketing do you need to do? Speaking is the best way to market your business as a solopreneur. And then finally, the 4th M is managing yourself and your business. How do you manage it all? Who do you have to delegate to? What pieces do you have to hire out? What's Fiverr? Go find out.
So true. My best friend at times.
Exactly. So those are the 4 pillars: messaging, methodology, marketing, and managing yourself and your business.
Love it. And I just want to ask one additional question in that regard, but flipping it back to those that want to stay in corporate. They could be honing some skills as they are even in their corporate environment that would both benefit them within corporate, but also when they do, if they are going to be transitioning. What would 1 or 2 of those things be?
Being strategic, which a lot of higher up leaders get to do, but being strategic means seeing something that's possible and then getting a plan to get there and knowing who are the people who are going to be able to support that plan to get there. And that goes for both internally and if you go out on your own. So that to-do list doesn't have things falling off of it that never happen. You've got the infrastructure, whether you have to make it yourself or you have it corporately. And that's how you start becoming an idea machine that can make things happen.
Love that. All right. Tell us about your book, Now What? 90 Days to a New Life Direction. And you can all find it on Amazon. Go to tiny.cc/Now What book. And it'll all be in your show notes and in all the information that we send out. But tell us about the book.
Yeah, Now What 90 Days to a New Life Direction. It came out of working with people after 9/11 for 90-day periods, because that was when I could predict my schedule. So literally in 12 weeks, it's 12 steps, but not like AA, 12-step program to help you navel gaze a little bit and figure out, what are you really about? It's not like, what color is your parachute? What do you like? And what are you good at? It's really looking at your life story and why you chose certain things that as a career, and going back and dismantling that and putting it back together in a new way. I never ask people for their resume. I ask them for their life story. And so that's at the crux of the book, is how your life story has informed your career choices and how you can change that moving forward.
Nice. Very nice. And again, we'll put all the information in regards to the book in our show notes, so you can take a look at there. All right, Laura, this has been fantastic. But before you go, I want to make sure everyone else knows you can go to laurabermanfortgang.com, learn about her. You can also link in with her, and be sure you link in with her at Laura Berman Fortgang as well. And then, of course, her book, tiny.cc/now what book. Laura, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Bernadette.
You are very welcome. What a powerhouse Laura is. And if there's one thing I want every one of you as powerhouses to walk away with, it's this. Thinking like an entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to become one, but you want to be visionary, strategic. You want to stop waiting for permission, and know that the day you actually decide to go out on your own, it is a completely different skill set entirely that you're going to need to be an entrepreneur. And there's no shame in choosing to build the mindset right where you are. Actually, it would benefit your whole career trajectory if you were to take on that entrepreneurial mindset that we discussed. And if you recognized yourself in Laura's understudy story, always being the reliable one, always picking up the jobs that no one else wants to do, and why you keep getting passed over for the promotions, that's worth sitting with. Sometimes the busiest person in the room is the one standing the furthest from the spotlight. So if you want to shine, then ensure that you're taking on some of these attributes and skills that Laura discussed with us. And share this with someone who needs to hear it as well. I'll look forward to having you for another episode of Shedding the Corporate Bitch. Bye.